Well, all right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. As always, I'm Brad, that's Mike, we're Dallas Geek, and we are your source for all the latest nerdy news and geek culture.
Kind of thought you were going to screw that up since it's been so long since we've done it.
I mean, I'm sure there are going to be plenty of other things we'll be rusty at, due to the unexpected mini hiatus, but, whatever. We'll just bulldoze through like we always do.
It's okay. We've still been working on, the thing that we're going to be talking about today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot that's been going on.
Spoiler alert.
A lot has been going on in the industry. And so when we say that we are your source for all the latest nerdy news, this is 100% newsworthy.
And I think we're the only ones because nobody else is working.
Yeah. I mean, definitely nobody else out there talking about the strikes or anything. Yeah. So, no, we're definitely not, maybe the 500th to the story, but whatever. Hopefully we'll definitely be the best. Okay.
All right.
So, the big Hollywood strikes.
Do we call them strikes plural, or do we just treat it as one giant? Since everybody's really fighting for the same thing.
I mean, considering how many different strikes are starting to pop up across the country,
it's fair.
I'd be willing to more call it just, start of the revolution.
Yeah.
But teach their own.
Yeah.
So yes, the big story of the day are the strikes in Hollywood, starting with the WGA that started 109 days ago, and then SAG-AFTRA that started 48 days ago. And I'm gonna be honest, it both feels like it is it has not been that long, and yet it also feels like it has been so much longer. But that also might just be, the whole being an adult thing. Time means nothing anymore.
God, no kidding. Jesus.
But the strikes are obviously grinding Hollywood to a halt. And not just because the strikes themselves are stopping productions across the board, but that all of the other unions in Hollywood are in complete support and are willingly coming together to not cross the picket lines, to abide by whatever other requests that SAG and the WGA may have as far as helping them, even to the point where you have union members of like IATSE who can't go on strike because they just had their contracts renegotiated a few years ago. But you have IATSE members that are even going and joining the picket lines in their off time to show solidarity. So it is obviously affecting every aspect of Hollywood right now, even to the point where it's not just these two unions that are going on strike. You have brand new unions starting to pop up with the Marvel VFX crews that have voted to unionize. And I don't know if you saw, I believe it was 2 days ago, the Disney VFX department has voted to unionize. They voted to unionize, and I think the official vote is coming up next week, I want to say. But either way, it's a foregone conclusion that the vote's going to pass.
God, that's just one shitty thing about unions. We have to vote to vote.
Yeah. But I will say, we'll see what happens with that, because although legally, Disney is supposed to, once those groups unionize, they are legally supposed to negotiate in good faith with them. Technically, they're also supposed to be negotiating in good faith with the WGA and SAG as well, and we see how well that's gone.
Yeah, I was about to say, you trying to tell me that Disney isn't on the up and up?
I mean, I'm not saying Bob Iger is, a money-grubbing bastard, but, I think when
we can't say that?
no.
All right. I was going to make an allusion to the founder being a Nazi sympathizer.
I mean,
and the fact that they, you know, employ left and right currently.
I mean, apocryphal stories of the founder aside, it's a very interesting time.
Dude, it's really weird. And it's not just the entertainment industry. You're seeing it too. Like there was the big thing with UPS, I think about a month ago.
Yes.
Where they were threatening to strike, and then finally they sat down and they hashed everything out and they got everything situated. But I think like you're seeing, like across the board, people are just kind of tired of the bullshit.
Well, let's not forget the attempted strike that the current presidential administration stepped in to prevent with the air traffic controllers.
Right.
Because, you know, the only thing that's going to be that you could do right now to really ingratiate yourselves as a politician is go back and relive the glory days of Reagan, because, you know, that went so well the first time.
Hey, man. The 80s were a much simpler time. Much simpler.
I mean, I think that was more the cocaine than anything else.
Well, yeah, everybody was happy and juiced up on cocaine. Exactly.
Yeah. Cocaine.
Everybody was wealthy, high, and nobody wanted to fight each other. And then Reagan tore down a wall with his bare hands.
Nobody wanted to fight each other. I think the cocaine begs to differ, but...
Well, no, but nobody wanted to fight each other on a global scale. It was just the cocaine was making everybody get into a fist fight.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the definition of Wall Street in the 80s.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
Just see the movie Wall Street.
Yeah. But, or, you know, I hate them forgetting this. Charlie Sheen and Gordon Gekko.
Wall Street.
Oh yeah, this is Wall Street.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Like, yes, Wall Street.
There it is. Yes.
But no, like it's, dude, it really is, and like, and this has been something that's kind of been brewing for a while. And unfortunately, look, both sides are saying that neither's been negotiating in good faith leading up to the strike. I'm not in the industry. You're not in the industry. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. I would be willing to bet it's probably somewhere closer to the side of the WGA and the SGA, or the WGA and SAG. Thank you.
Yeah.
I was going to say SGA, and then I was like, no. I'm mixing up acronyms. But look, like, we're kind of seeing it all come to a head, right? And I hate that it got to this point, but when you have sides that are so far off that, like, this is literally the only thing that can basically do anything. Like, now the thing that I worry about is, remember, this happened back in 05, 06 with the writers. Might have been on I want to say it was around that time. I want to say Heroes, I think, was like 05. Could have been later. Google faster, damn it. You have swipe. There's no reason that you shouldn't.
2007.
2007, thank you.
Yeah, that requires me to be accurate enough with my swiping that I'm not making as many typos as I do when I'm just typing.
Stupid fingers, yeah. But you saw the writers hold out in 07 for more, and they really kind of folded in.
Yep.
Like, this is probably a byproduct of that.
No, absolutely. And I mean, the WGA has even admitted that if they hadn't compromised in 07, that there's a chance that they would be in a better negotiating place today. But at the time, it seemed like the only deal that they could get without risking too much.
Right.
But because of the lessons that they learned back in 07, they were able to prepare better going into this one, and they were able to put together a larger strike fund. They were able to put together more resources ahead of time to be able to take care of their members, so that the individual union members would not be so
that's a really good
up for finances like they were the last time.
It's a really good point, Mondo. We do get John Cena back for 8 straight weeks on SmackDown because of this. So there is some good coming from the strike.
Well, yeah, because, you know, wrestlers don't have a union to worry about.
But the writers do. I mean, wait, no. Why does wrestling need writers? It's not scripted.
And, you know, the WWE definitely doesn't have any issues with international humanitarian associations.
No, God, no.
Totally not.
Moving on.
So, yeah,
But I think, there's some really key points that this, there's really key points that this comes down to.
I will say really quickly,
Yeah.
I think the thing that we're seeing in this strike that's actually making this strike so much more unique than the one in 07.
They're showing Backbone this time?
No, actually, it is the use of social media to connect to all of us here at home to more directly relay what's happening and the reasons why and how this has been affecting individual members. Because, you know, like back in 07, because the WGA was primarily stuck using the same media outlets that these major studios own in order to communicate back to us. We were kind of... There were still a lot of people in the general public that were stuck with the idea that, well, if you are a member of a Hollywood union, that must mean that you are a millionaire. You know, this is just, you know, a whole bunch of rich people bitching about more money and more money when, you know, how is that really fair to the rest of us? But this time, because of the use of social media, honestly, even in particular, the use of TikTok, which has been one of the most beneficial social media platforms of any for the union members on both WGA and SAG to be able to reach out and communicate direct stories to the rest of us. We now have been able to better understand that no, the millionaires in SAG and the WGA, those are the very rare exceptions, and that the vast majority are literally living paycheck to paycheck, and most members of SAG and the WGA do not actually make enough to be able to afford health insurance. They barely make enough to be able to afford to do their job without requiring a second or third job, and even then, most, if you are in the LA Hollywood area, probably do have a second or third job these days, because even the writers are not being contracted for the same long periods that they used to for broadcast and cable television, when, you know, an entire season's worth of employment has now been stripped down to at best 6 weeks of writing, and then who knows how long until the next time you get hired, which now also decreases the time you have for new writers to build experience over the course of that season that they can then take to the next job to make them a more experienced writer, to be able to go from like that entry-level writing position to maybe a more senior position on the next set, and then a more senior position on the next set, and keep getting those pay bumps as the positions go up, which no longer is able to happen with streaming and the shortened time you're actually involved with production, especially now that most streaming productions do not allow writers on set anymore because they don't want to pay them. So maybe at best 1 or 2 of the lead writers will remain, but everybody else from the writer's room is gone after the first 6 weeks.
And especially with the proposed introduction of AI into the writing and acting side of this whole thing. That's really is almost something out of a sci-fi movie, right?
I mean, we can point out how many problems have already popped up with AI, as far as, like, you know, dumbass college professors using ChatGPT to ask, did you write the student's paper, and for it to say yes, even though that doesn't actually mean anything. And they believe it. We can try to point out stories like that all day long, but at the end of the day, we have to point out, no matter how you want to slice it, the point that AI is at right now is literally the worst it's ever going to be, and it's only going to continue to improve, which makes it dangerous for people like writers and actors, where at some point they could legitimately be replaced by technology, not in a successful way for creativity, but definitely as far as formulaic, repetitive, dribble that would be able to be considered passable TV in an off season.
Hey, why do I have to keep your ass employed when I could just ask the computer to write a season for me? Or the one that's really up is them wanting to do body scans of background actors and then just like, okay, we don't ever need you again.
Yeah.
Like, that is some Orwellian shit. Like, that's something you would see in like Tropic Thunder, where they would be doing a parody of Hollywood.
I'll give you one better. One that's actually much more terrifying to the point. There is a developer, and this has already been this hit headlines months ago at this point, like much earlier in the year. But there's an independent developer out there who has actually made an AI South Park, where they have recreated graphically full assets for the entire town of South Park. They've laid out the map, and they've created the animated character assets, and just dropped them into the recreation of South Park town, and they've let AI learn from every episode of South Park that's ever been made, for voices, for plots, for jokes, everything, and they have let it loose to just create a living, breathing South Park, so that you can go to the sites where this is hosted, and you can just click on any building in South Park and at any point, and be able to see essentially a completely AI generated episode of South Park, starting in that location with whatever characters happen to be there at that moment, and just continue on through. And from what I've understood, for the most part, it feels and sounds like just about any other South Park episode, with some of the jokes actually being fairly topical and current, which is terrifying, because yes, you for something like South Park, you have enough material there to be able to go back through and have a chance of recent or decently recreating what makes that show interesting. Just like you probably could with The Simpsons, because there's just so much material to be able to analyze.
Simpsons fell off like a decade ago.
But the fact of the matter is, if you can do that to essentially recreate an existing show that has had enough material out there to analyze in order to recreate authentically, how long do you think it's going to take before it doesn't require nearly that much pre-existing material to start creating new stories and new versions of other shows, or even brand new shows that are essentially just copy paste versions of shows that have already been with different characters? Like, that's the part that should be terrifying, the fact that there are already people doing this to a reasonable degree of success.
Well, hell, Disney already did it with Rogue One, when they CGI'd in Grand Moff Tarkin and Princess Leia.
I'd argue the success on those, but I mean, it was definitely better than it had been before. I just wouldn't necessarily argue that those were successes, but that's whatever.
But hey, that was the Pandora's box being opened, though.
It was. No, it absolutely was.
You know, and I can't remember if there was, just off the top of my head, sorry for bumping the table, if there was anything as to that scale in terms of like a major motion picture where they did it. Yeah. Now, obviously, you know, they've done stuff where they've gone back and they've edited films where like somebody that had passed during filming and production and everything like that, they had, you know, spliced it together to put them in, and, you know, keep stuff in there, like Ledger with The Dark Knight and stuff like that. But I mean, they had already completed filming. Like before that person passed. This was literally, hey, we're going to use a computer generated image of these people that are no longer alive and put them in a feature film.
Oh yeah.
And not just like standing in the background, like they had speaking, like they had lines of dialogue, like I remember seeing that and I was like, we saw it together. And ironically, what I think is the weakest Star Wars movie that has come out since Disney's bought them, and fight me. Rogue One is overrated.
Oh, without question.
But that's a different conversation for a different day. But I remember just kind of like sitting there watching that, and I'm like, wait, where does this go?
Yeah, well, I mean...
And then you hear about scanning background actors to use their likeness, and hey, we don't ever need you again. Or they want to use AI to literally write entire seasons of shows, or even to come up with the creative basis for shows. And it's like, well, damn, y'all are just trying to get rid of everybody that you don't think is worthwhile. So then what does that mean for the industry going forward? Does that mean you only have like 100 actors working?
Well, and we already had, before any of this went down, there had already been conversations for several years now about studios trying to purchase the intellectual property for and image rights of dead celebrities, to the point where I believe it was which actor was it? It was why am I drawing a blank on his name? Really famous actor, died young.
James Dean?
There it is. I think it was James Dean, whose likeness has already been purchased by a studio and is planning on being put together into a completely CGI'd version of himself in a live action, I think it was Vietnam movie, Vietnam or World War II movie that's going to be put out. I think it's supposed to be sometime in the next couple years, where
well, it ain't going to be this year.
Where it's going to be entirely computer-generated image of him, completely computer-generated dialogue for him, and the test shots, because I've seen some of the test shots, are terrifyingly accurate.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're talking about a movie where he had never in his career done any other movie with those types of costumes or anything similar aesthetically to be able to use as the basis of his image. So it's just scans of him and his body and his face created into whatever aesthetic they wanted. And that is terrifying, especially because there are actually companies right now that exist in Hollywood specifically for the purpose of managing the image rights of celebrities, dead and alive, when the estates for those celebrities no longer want to manage that directly. And it's becoming its own industry.
Chilling.
Yeah, it's legitimately becoming its own industry, which
like,
is
I need
horrifying.
Like the shower up here still works, right? Because
it's work in progress.
Okay. Because I feel like I need to take one right now.
Oh yeah,
like that is. Ugh.
Yeah, factor in that all of the work that Marvel and Disney VFX has done is all managed by a single company in Southern California that their entire job is to not just manage the VFX, but to be able to store and archive the images of the animation for all of it, to the point where they can use that as the starting place for new VFX shots to continue to improve without having to recreate from scratch every time. Which means they've already got the perfect testing ground to create new uses of these images for shots that never could have been filmed in the first place. Like, we all remember the very unfortunate and now very knowingly unfinished fight scene from the end of Black Panther, where there was nothing about that had been actually motion capped. It was entirely CGI. Think about if they had been able to have time to finish the effect shots on that, so it didn't look so choppy. Think about how much action occurred in that without needing a single human being to be physically involved in it. If that had been able to happen, then, to that extent, that was years ago. What do you think would be possible with enough time and computer power now that they have gotten so much better at it?
What do you think happens to the voice acting industry?
That's...
If we can just use AI to replicate people's voices, that means that pretty much every voice actor that's a big name could continue to voice every major character for any animated, anime, whatever, hundreds of years after they're gone.
Well, and that's... AI, even right now, like the publicly available online, even has the ability to be able to create new voices. All you have to do is give it certain qualities that you're asking for. You know, give me a voice that is similar to the tone of like Bradley Cooper, or similar to the tone of Jennifer Garner, or whatever. Like, there is a trend on TikTok right now for audio where people are having AI recreate popular songs using Eric Cartman. And it actually sounds like Cartman is singing.
Mr. Krabs, Plankton, Freddie Mercury.
But not just like it sounds like, oh, you know, it's a gimmick. Like, there are a couple that, like, there's...
You're like, did Trey do this himself?
Like, well, more than that, there are two songs in particular. One was... no, actually, I think there were two Evanescence songs. Plus another one that, you know, another like early 2000s rock song that actually sounded almost more rock and more like just raw and good than the original recording, and it's freaking Cartman. Like, that should be enough right there to say that if you don't think AI could do it, you're wrong. It already can.
Oh, absolutely. You know, so I think, you know, both, like, take away the push for better healthcare, take away the push for a better distribution of streaming rights, a better balance between, you know, film and TV, balance in terms of pay for writers and actors, like all of these things that they're fighting for, which they should have access to and should be better. Just the AI component alone. Like, oh, wait, you're telling me you guys don't want us to just basically use computers to recreate you and put you out of work? Okay. Oh, and then we own your likeness until the end of time?
Well, and the thing that has been kind of addressed in some of the coverage here, but really has not been addressed enough, is the fact that the AI that is being used for a lot of this is being trained right now primarily off of other people's copywritten work that these companies are making the AI are just able to get access to online without actually getting permission. And the problem is because like 90% of the time, what the AI is able to create makes it almost impossible to definitively say which copyrighted works were used to train it for this particular output. It's been nearly impossible for the original creators of the work that was used to train it to actually sue for compensation. Now, there have been a couple of times where what the AI created was so blatantly based on this person's work or this person's work that that original creator could sue and has successfully. But for the most part, that hasn't happened. And considering how many of these major studios are part of a company or just directly own other companies like publishing houses that can just go in and say, well, we don't need to worry about training this on other copywritten work out there. We'll just go for our own internal archives. We'll train off of our own movies. We'll train off of the copywritten works of the archives from this publisher or this publisher. And, you know, at that point, as long as there is nothing in the contract for the writer that says that they can't, then what recourse does anybody have at that point to try to fight back against this?
Oh, you know what? Hey, shit. We couldn't get the rights to the John Grisham book that we wanted to turn into a movie. Let's just have the computer make something pretty damn similar.
Yeah. Make a John Grisham-esque movie. And, you know, since...
Cover and hit this plot point, this plot point, this plot point.
Well, even worse, Disney.
Yeah.
They own Marvel Comics. What happens to the comic book industry if Disney decides one day that they want to have their own proprietary AI scan every Marvel comic that's ever been published and use that to train it to be able to create brand new Marvel comics and
not just storylines, not just dialogue,
everything,
but animation, like everything.
You know, that cuts out the artists, the inkers, the colorists, the writers, pencilers, everybody. It completely decimates the comic book industry because all it takes is for them to do it. Because if anybody is going to, it's going to be more than likely Disney because they have the resources. But the moment they do that, that's when David Zaslav over at Warner Discovery, since they own DC Comics, that's the moment he gets the idea to try to do that with DC Comics. And now the two largest publishers in the comic book space just put out of business every other comic book creator in the industry, and now you're left with hoping that the smaller indie publishers don't go that direction too, or just aren't put out of business entirely. So it has way too many far-reaching implications to the rest of entertainment to consider the AI component of this to be just a small quibble.
No, God, no. This is, I would argue that the AI component is probably the biggest thing. Like, I understand their other points for striking and their other demands. I would argue, like, this is the thing that should keep them all up at night.
Yeah, and it's the one thing that...
I understand that you need healthcare, but at the same time, like, you also need a job, and you need a way to make your living, and if they can just replace your ass with a computer tomorrow...
Well, and it's the one thing that in all of the coverage so far about negotiations between WGA and the studios, you know, AMPTP, or SAG and AMPTP, the one thing that has been consistent in every attempt at negotiation, at least as far as what's been released to the public, 100% of the negotiations thus far has continued to absolutely neglect to address any aspect of AI with either the WGA or SAG.
Yep.
They will not even discuss it, which should tell you right there what their priorities are.
Yep.
Because, I mean, just look at what the actual demands for the WGA is. They're asking for increased minimum compensation across all media. So that's increased minimum compensation for TV, for movies, for streaming, for online exclusive. They're asking for increased residuals, and as part of that, an improved residual format for streaming, because current residual breakouts don't include streaming at all. They are asking for fairer deals on contracts. They are asking to standardize compensation in residual terms for features released on theatrically or on streaming.
Right.
They're asking for healthcare benefit extension to the striking writers to be able to give them more time to qualify for healthcare coverage. Because right now, the amount of time that they have to qualify for healthcare coverage and the amount of money they have to be making to qualify for it is no longer feasible in with the shorter durations of work for streaming. Just the math is literally impossible unless somehow you get hired in back-to-back streaming projects all year long, which never happens, even for like the big names in the industry. They're asking for shorter exclusivity deals, so that writers will have the ability to work with multiple studios rather than being forced to only work with Disney or only work with NBC Universal for a year or 3 years and be barred from working anywhere else, which means now if that writer in particular does not get picked up for more than one piece of work every year or 2 years, that they're out of luck.
And you can write, in that year that you're there, you can write multiple scripts, across TV, pitch multiple pilots, that kind of thing.
Yeah, they're asking for staffing requirement improvements, specifically that they increase the minimum staffing requirements in the writer's room at the start of the writing process, as well as increase the minimum mandatory staffing in the writer's room throughout the duration of production. And the problem with that, the bit of negotiations that have been released on that one, it's the other little tricky thing that the studios have been doing, is that the AMPTP, which I know we've been saying this, that acronym a bit, but for those of you who don't know, the AMPTP is the name of the union that represents the studios.
Right.
But what the AMPTP has done as far as attempting to concede to the staffing requirements is that their latest negotiations said that, yes, we will leave staffing requirements in the writer's room at the discretion of the showrunner for, like streaming shows. But they're very specific about the title of that person, with the very universal understanding across the industry right now that studios, ever since streaming has continued to increase and the conversation about residuals has come up, and especially since the moment that HBO Max was shifted to just Max, and we saw that in the credits, directors, writers, producers were all rebranded to creators, that the big studios are trying to move away from the term showrunner, which means the moment that the lead producer for a show is no longer called showrunner, then that stipulation in the contract, if it says that the showrunner has full discretion for writers' room staffing, that no longer applies because officially there's no more showrunner to make that decision. Because the contract, once created, does not get updated if the title of the position gets changed.
Yep.
And that's on purpose. It is very well understood that that is on purpose.
Oh yeah, like nothing that the studios are doing is an accident.
No.
Yeah, like I mean, let's both sides are very clear with what they want and what they're willing to concede moving forward. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, you have the studios pretty much drawing a hard line in the sand, basically saying like, yeah, no, like, yeah, we're not conceding on anything. We're going to wait you guys out, and good luck.
Yeah.
Well, which they probably didn't even say that last part. That's
no, actually, from the coverage on TikTok from some of the WGA members from this last negotiation attempt, the conversation that's been going around the picket line has been that what actually happened was this last round of negotiations, there were no negotiations. It was the AMPTP came in, and rather than just having AMPTP representatives, it was the AMPTP representatives and the heads of the Big Five. So that's the heads of Disney, Warner Discovery, Amazon, Netflix, and NBC Universal. Yep. That were all in the room with them. And they didn't come in with any new terms than they had the previous attempt at negotiating. What they did was they brought them in to chastise the WGA negotiating team for not giving in, and how dare you punish the studios for this long. You're not being fair to this. You're being uncaring to the people at home that want to be able to have new things to watch. And from a couple of the people who are relatively close to the negotiating team that I heard their recaps of, apparently Bob Iger and David Zaslav in particular were did you ever hear those stories about how LBJ would negotiate behind closed doors with other politicians in the government?
Call them racial slurs?
Sometimes, other times, literally whipping it out and, telling them to, compare and just saying some of the worst things you can imagine to them, degrading them as a person, as a human being, as a, whatever, and literally threatening them with physical violence if they didn't comply. That's basically what apparently Iger and Zaslav did during the negotiations. Supposedly, obviously can't confirm, but supposedly taking over the conversation even from the AMPTP negotiating team and just going off on them with some of the worst things you can imagine them saying. Like, it was apparently horrific.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, they absolutely are not giving in. And I mean, you look at what SAG is asking for, and they're asking for, once again, increased minimum pay rates. They want streaming residuals. Not right. They say increased streaming residuals, but the reality is they want streaming residuals because they don't exist. They want improved working conditions, which means better hours, more breaks, more on-set care for actors, because unless you are one of the leads, most actors that get hired for movies are given pretty awful conditions, and even some of the leads aren't given great conditions. Right. If you've heard any of the stories from the first of the the Michael Bay Ninja Turtle movies, and how the guys that actually played the turtles were treated. Like Alan Richardson, the guy that plays Jack Reacher for the Amazon show.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, yeah.
He was one of the turtles, and he's talked about in.
He mocapped for one of them.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he talked about how he and the other guys that were the turtles were treated, and they were literally treated like trash. Like they because they were under. They were not under acting contracts. They were apparently under, I think it was like animation contracts because of the type of work that they were doing.
Stunt contracts or something.
No, it was like animation, I think is what he said, because of the mocap stuff. So they did not have to abide by the normal SAG standards. So what they did was, because they were not, their contracts did not require overtime pay. What happened was every time the shoots would finish, they were specifically told to wait until the very end to be able to be bussed off of set. Everybody else had to go because everybody else on set would end up getting overtime pay if they went over. So they were left literally out in the cold rain with no cover, no umbrellas, no nothing, waiting for these stupid shuttles to come back to get them. Sometimes actually getting forgotten and having to try to find a phone to call back and say, where are you guys? We've been waiting here for like 3 hours. Yep. When are we going to get to go back to the hotel? And then if they got finally picked up by that and didn't have to take care of their own transportation, they were barely given any time to sleep before they had to be back on set the next day. They were not given full access to food, craft services, so they were not even properly fed. And the amount of physical abuse that they got on set actually caused physical injuries to them that almost absolutely messed up his body for any future work.
Yeah.
Almost got him to quit the industry altogether because of it.
You mean a guy who auditioned Megan Fox by having her wash his car wasn't on the up and up in terms of taking care of talent?
Yeah. No, it was awful. So when we say that they want improved working conditions, we're talking that there are literal
basic human rights.
Yeah, there are working conditions where saying that there are human rights violations happening on set is not a joke.
I'd like to have 30 minutes so that I can grab some food and then take a shit. Is that too much to ask?
Yeah.
Oh, I've got to be in this suit for 12 hours, but I can't take a piss for 2 minutes? Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that seems legit.
Like, even back, like, if you watch Michael Rosenbaum's podcast, he and Tom Welling have even talked about, back in the days of Smallville, how, like, for the first couple seasons, Tom had to drive himself back and forth from the set, and they would be shooting so late and start so early that by the second season, the rest of the cast was getting legitimately concerned for his safety because he was barely getting enough sleep to be able to drive himself back to set without risking falling asleep at the wheel, and even had a couple of close calls to the point where the rest of the main cast had to demand that somebody pick up the tab for a car to pick him up and take him back.
And I feel like those are such easy concessions.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like, okay, if you don't want them, like, if you're gonna have them spend all this time on set, give them sleeping conditions near, like, on set.
Yeah.
Like, everybody's got a trailer, like, get them set up so that they can sleep on set.
Yeah, and like,
oh, hey, you know what, guys? It's gonna be a long shoot tonight. Just crash on set tonight.
Yeah, like one of the podcast episodes actually had him and Tom talking to the executive producers from the show.
Yeah.
And they brought that up, and from what I remember, the whole issue with Tom's transportation was never actually a malicious thing because they just hadn't thought about it.
Right.
And because Tom was such a young actor at the time, he didn't know to ask for it.
Yeah.
So it just became this combination of circumstances where it could have been avoided, but nobody was thinking about, once again, the care of the actors.
Yeah.
And so it just happened when it really shouldn't have.
And
they
that
were
sounds...
okay saying yes the moment it was asked for, but the fact that it was not something that was already thought about before production started is what the problem was.
And
now it continues to happen with new productions, but as an intentional thing.
Yeah, and it sounds so... I don't want to say asinine, but it sounds so like...
I mean, yeah, asine's fair.
But because there would be people, because I'm sure there will be people that are watching this, they're going to be like, the care of the actors? Really? Like those pampered, spoiled, blah, 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 blah. Why do they need to be cared for?
There's a reason why you have the stereotype of, you know, the actor that works at the restaurant.
Yep.
Because
they do.
Most actors do not make enough money off of acting to actually make a living.
Yep. Absolutely. I mean, and then on top of that too, like the hours that they are on set, like ask Zim, who's been an extra for things that like, oh, like, yeah, like when they were filming Any Given Sunday here, they went and they were extras in the stands for when they were filming the stuff at the old Texas Stadium, and they were literally in the stands 70, 80 takes, hours on end. Like, yeah. No, you can't go to the bathroom. We're in the middle of, like, we're about to set up for a take. Just stand there for 20 minutes and do nothing, and then we'll go ahead and get you going.
Yeah.
Like there is a protocol to the fact that like these people are on set for like 10, 12-hour days.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yes, like just look at like OSHA.
Mm-hmm.
Like look at OSHA work violations. Like every 5 hours you have to take a 30-minute break.
Mm-hmm. Every
9 hours you're supposed to take an hour. You're permitted X amount of 10-minute breaks, working this much time, blah, 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 blah.
And a lot of that doesn't apply on set.
No. Which is crazy when you think about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, you know, a lot of people even look at, you know, like the lead actors in shows and assume that, well, if you're one of the you know, top billed actors on a show these days, then you must be making bank. But, I mean... since the strike has started, you have a lot of the main actors from Orange is the New Black that have come out and talked about their experience on set, saying that most of them still had to be working a second or third job during filming of Orange is the New Black from the beginning of the series to the very end, because they were not getting paid enough by Netflix to actually afford health insurance, let alone be able to pay their bills. So, it was the guy that plays the lead guard. I'm blanking on the guy's name, but he apparently had I think it was 2 other jobs in addition to the acting gig for the show, because he could not afford health insurance.
Well, you're under contract. You can't work anywhere else while we're filming.
It was ridiculous, and I mean, yeah, we can say that Netflix, you know, is unique in the sense that they are not a traditional studio, so of course they're going to be the ones to try to pull this, but they're not the only ones. They're just the newest.
Well, dude, go back to the old days of like, this is Universal's leading actor. He only works in Universal productions. You know, like. The Hollywood is rife with, hey, you're our guy, you're our girl. You don't work for any other production company.
Yeah.
If we don't have anything for you, we don't have anything for you. Sorry.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you have the outcome of the Paramount Accords that we've talked about before, that broke that cycle up originally by making it illegal for a single company to be able to own the entire vertical process of creation through distribution of movies, where the studio that makes the movie cannot own the publishing studio, cannot own the theater that the movie is shown in. That they have to be separate companies because otherwise it's a vertical monopoly, and it does not promote adequate competition. Now, the problem is that Congress,
two branches, House and Senate.
and I'm trying to remember, was it Congress or the Supreme Court? Supreme Court had a case about this, I think it was 2 years ago now. Yeah, it was in 2020, where they had to evaluate it if it was still legitimate, and they came back and said that no, this is no longer a thing that we need to be concerned about because Hollywood is clearly a much more fair competition environment. So they allowed for the sunsetting of the Paramount Accords that by the end of this year will allow for that vertical monopoly to resume again, even though the problem is the exact text of that legislation didn't have anything in there to apply to streaming, which means under streaming that vertical monopoly already existed, and that's what the problem with streaming has been, is that because they owned production, publishing, and distribution through streaming, they have been able to get away with these very unfair deals for the people that actually make these movies and shows because there's no competition there to force them to do better. But now that they are looking to be able to possibly get back into the realm of purchasing physical theaters again, that would be able to potentially completely kill competition across the board and go back to the days of movie theater exclusivity for movies. So, you know, Disney buys up theaters, and now Disney movies are only ever going to be shown in Disney theaters, and on and on and on, which is a very serious problem. Because that means that the things that the WGA and the SAG are asking for right now will almost never be able to be followed through under those conditions if they don't stick to their guns right now. I mean, hell, we even have right there. They want increased compensation for successful streaming programs. They want improved health and retirement benefits. They want stronger contribution to union pensions and health funds. They want residuals from streaming because that's not a thing that exists. Once again, a lot of the same things that WGA is asking for. And at the end of the day, what they're asking for, at least the WGA, is the WGA's request accounts for a grand total of over 3 years, $429 million annual cost to the studios, which they made sure to point this out, comes out to a breakout of only 0.091% of Disney's annual revenue, 0.214% of Netflix's annual revenue, 0.108% of Warner Discovery's revenue, 0.148% of Paramount Global's, 0.028 of NBC Universal's, and 0.006 of Amazon's annual revenue. We are talking about numbers that are less than 1% of the annual revenue of any individual studio. That's all they're asking for to be able to fix the problem that the WGA is alone is experiencing. And so far, in the 109 days that the WGA strike has been going on, the studios have already lost more than that in their fight against the WGA. Like,
at this point,
between the cost of shutdown productions, between the cost of lost theatrical revenue, between the due to the cost of other production and studio costs that contracts that have gone into liquidated damages, they've already lost more than what they would have had to pay the WGA to fix this, and they're doing this strictly because they do not want to give in to the demands,
Yep.
even though the demands are literally nothing to these guys.
Yep. I mean, shit, all of these could probably be used with tax write-offs. Let's just be honest.
I mean, because, you know, the current method of tax write-offs is definitely not problematic with taking productions that are made fully edited and finished, ready to go, and then scrapping it before launch or shortly after launch as a tax loss write-off. And since it was only ever on streaming, nobody will be able to have access to that that media ever again, because there was never a physical copy to have, and you couldn't download from streaming. So all that work, the hundreds of hours, the millions of dollars, or even hundreds of millions of dollars of production cost are just gone, because somehow that makes more sense for the studio's financial gymnastics than it does to just let people see what the movie or show was and decide if they like it. It's literally insane.
It's hard to argue.
So
I mean, that's the thing, but everybody's so, everybody's dug their heels so far into the ground, and it's, unfortunately, I think the studios are looking at this like, no, like, we can't give in because it's a sign of weakness, and we can't give a single inch.
Yeah.
Which is stupid when you think about it.
Yeah.
I mean, what does this actually hurt you in the long run?
I don't know. I mean, these guys are.
That's the thing that I don't get.
This is showing everybody the ugly side of Hollywood, the side that these studios have tried for such a long time to hide from the viewing public, and at this point they just don't care anymore.
And this is an industry that didn't shy away from the casting couch joke. Yeah.
Because it wasn't just a joke.
No.
Most of the time.
Like, they were banging broads left and right. I can still say that, right? Broads is still the vernacular.
We'll call it historically accurate and try not to think too hard about it.
Yeah, for the time period, yeah. But I mean,
the time period, technically that was still happening like a few years ago.
That's true. But I mean, like, the stories of the 40s, the 50s, the 60s of the sleazy producer that's got a couch in his office, like, hey, if you want to be in the pictures... Like that was this industry, and somehow this makes them look like even bigger dicks. Like,
which is impressive.
Like, sexual assault and harassment was like where everybody was okay with it, but like, no, we can't give in now. We can't treat them like basic human beings.
Yeah, to go and think that Weinstein and Louis C.K. would be considered the tame ones of the bunch at this point.
Right.
Ugh. So,
Yeah.
Yay. So, yeah, I know that we've definitely gone long today. That was kind of unavoidable, considering how much there's to cover, and we've still barely covered half of it.
Yep.
Honestly. So we are definitely going to be coming back next week with more. We'll be diving into a bit more specifics. And of course, as any new updates come out, we will be bringing those up. And, you know what, we will make sure to give more resources that you can go check out in order to better follow some of the latest updates in the strikes. But I will just go ahead right now and plug one of the best people, in my opinion, to follow on TikTok if you want to be able to get the updates on what's happening with the WGA. Because she has been one of the WGA members that has had the most comprehensive coverage of what's happening on the picket line.
Right.
And that would be at that clarified. Clarified is CLARAFIED. at That Clarified. She, her stories and coverage of the strike and the picket line. If you want some of the most detailed stories about the day-to-day, she has daily updates, and it is impressive how thorough she is.
Absolutely.
So definitely, if you want the WGA side, she's the first person I would recommend following. So, yeah, we'll come back with more of all of this next week. And until then, yeah, Mike, any other final words?
I just want my movies back.
I mean,
That's all I want.
I think that's really only going to happen as soon as are able to be put in their place.
We can't say asshole?
I mean, it's the combination. More
Oh,
than anything else.
okay, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, get your shit together, figure it out.
Yeah. And seriously,
Yeah.
we understand that at some point, this coverage is likely to piss off the mouse. This is one case where I don't think we really care about that one, because at the end of the day, at the end of the day, we both stand with the strikers on this. We are more than happy to abide by the requests that they have made to online content creators as far as what to and not to cover, what to and not to do as far as the studios are concerned. I think that we can very comfortably continue to try to speak out on behalf of the WGA and SAG, because we understand how important their treatment is to us even be able to enjoy the entertainment that we love, because there's no way that either of us could comfortably continue watching any of these shows or movies knowing how poorly the people making it are treated. If that continues to be the case, that we are more than happy to support them. So, yeah. But yes, as the final comment here, if you have not already, please do be sure to like, subscribe, like the video and subscribe on YouTube. There we go. One little
Click the little bell for notifications too.
Yep.
Apparently, it's supposed to help with stuff.
Yeah, it tells the Googles, the YouTube, that you want to find out more about when we post lives or any of our other videos, and so you will always get an update for when we have new content. And of course, if you are watching us over on Facebook, don't forget to like the video and follow us on Facebook, where you will be able to continue to get this exact same updates with, a little bit more written content here and there as well.
Yep.
And of course, if you want to be able to follow more of our content but don't always have time for the videos, you can get the audio of every one of our live shows, interviews, and other fun stuff that we do over at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher. And actually, soon to be, oddly enough, Amazon Prime Podcast.
Yeah.
Because that's coming up.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's a lot of places to be able to get our stuff. However you prefer to check it out, feel free. And we will continue to come back more consistently with all the stuff that you like. So,
Yeah, like the crabs.
Mr. Krabs?
Sure, Brad. Let's go with that.
Well, could be worse.
That could be. I don't know how, but it could be.
You could need the chum bucket. Yes, with that, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. As always, I'm Brad. That's Mike. We're Dallas Geek. And see ya.